I am audible.
Yes, sir.
Okay, should I start?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
So, very good morning to you all. So, in last class, I have discussed the fundamentals of the deep learning, how this deep learning, the architecture of deep learning looks like. Now, let us try to understand now how we are going to apply this neural network for a particular problem and how we are going to extract the features and how this particular algorithm works in the during the training process. So let's take a very simple example to understand this fundamentals of deep learning, how we are going to perform the training. So what we did, we have a binary classification problem that I have to design a system that will tell us whether my flight will be delayed or not. So it is a binary classification. I will give some environmental conditions as an input. So the input for my system will be an some environmental conditions, and on the basis of those environmental conditions, my system should give the output whether my flight will be delayed or not. So this is a binary classification problem, and for this problem, I have to design this deep neural network type system. So what we can do? So let's take there are two input values are there, and on basis of these two input values, I have to design my system. So here you will see here there are two values are one is the temperature and second one is the wind speed. So these are the two input values. So now for this two input values, I can represent it as a vector. So now there are two values, and for these two values, I have to generate a system. I have to design a system that will generate a binary classification problem that will give me the answer whether my flight will be delayed or not. So how you are going to design? So in this particular system, for this particular system, for a deep neural network, first I have to decide the input layers. So input layers. Now the thing is input layer, how many neurons will be there in input layer? So the number of neurons into input layer is equals to the number of input features value, number of input values. So there are two input values. So definitely there will be two neurons. There will be two neurons as an input value. First neuron will take first input, second neuron will take second input. Since in input layer, the whatever the input is given to this neuron, the output is the same. Now second is we can decide the output layer. In the output layer, we have to decide how many neurons we have to take. So it is a binary classification problem. So there is only one neuron is sufficient. One neuron is sufficient. So it will generate some output. Now this is the simple system. Now we can decide, so this is a hyperparameter, that is the hidden layers. So let's take, we have some hidden layer neurons, and we can take any number of hidden layer neurons. It is a hyperparameter and will be decided by our system capabilities and our accuracy system. So this is a simple architecture which we have designed. So we have seen how we can decide the number of neurons in the input layer, number of neurons in the output layer, and hidden layer neurons can be decided. It is a hyperparameter, can be taken any number of hidden layer neurons. Now we have to connect these. So I will connect these input layer neurons to hidden layer neurons like this, and it is not compulsory that every input is connected to this hidden layer neurons, but here we are using the layer. Dense layer means every in neuron in the previous layer is connected to every neuron in the next layer. So this is a dense configuration. So now next is hidden layer neuron will be connected to output layer neuron. Okay, every input will be weighted with some weights. So what we will do, we start our operation by taking some random weights. So we just take a random weights. Here we can take 1 1, we can take its weight as 1 2, because it is a neuron 1 from input layer, it is going to neuron 1 in the hidden layer. So I can just give it a nomenclature w11, then w12, it can be rewrite w13, then it is a w21, w22, w23, like this. It has some bias value, so we can take it bias 0, bias 1, bias 2. Okay, and then it will generate the output like I have already explained how we can calculate the output. Let's say the output of this neuron is h0, h1, h2, and it is associated with this output layer neuron with some weight. So we can take capital W0, capital W1, capital W2. Okay, then have some bias. Let's take this bias as B, and then activation function. So this is the configuration. Now I have to start my training process. So how I am going to start my training process? Initially, I will initialize all these weights which I am just assigning W or Wij and Wi and all the bias some with some random values. So I just assign the random values. Now what I will do, I will give the input -20 and 45 over here. Then I will perform the operation -20 into corresponding weight plus bias with after then I will apply the activation function. It will generate H0. Similarly, then -20 into corresponding weight plus bias and -20 plus corresponding weight. Next input is 45. Sorry. So next input is 45 into corresponding weight. This is XW plus bias. Then I will apply the activation function. Then it will give H0. Similarly, -20 into corresponding weight plus 45 into corresponding weight plus B1 bias of this neuron. Then it will generate the output H1. Similarly, I will get H2. Then I will perform H0 into W0 plus H1 into W1 plus H2 into W0, W2 plus bias plus activation function. It will generate some output. It will generate some output. So this is the first operation. This is the first forward operation where I have given single input sample and I got a output. So what is happening? Now you can see the architecture over here. So I have this architecture where there are two input neurons in the input layer, one in the output layer, and these are the three hidden layer neurons. And after applying the first step, after I just randomly initialize the weights, I have given this input sample and I got the output. Let's take, for example, the output is 0.05. The output is 0.05. So this is the predicted output by my system when the input weights are randomly initialized. But this is a training sample means I have the labeled, this is a labeled training sample. I know at this environmental condition what will be the output of my system. So now let's take at this particular condition the actual output was the flight was 100% delayed, but my system is giving the prediction is 0.05. So there is a difference, so I have to design a system, so that this difference can be minimized. Difference can be minimized. So now what I will do, I will calculate the loss. So now loss will be the function of these two values, predicted value and actual value. So I can write the formula like this. So you will see here, this is a predicted value and this is the actual value. So now this predicted value and actual value, this is the represented by y, actual value is represented by y, and predicted value is again a function of two things. One is input, this is represented, this complete f function represent the output of this predicted value. It is a function of again the input value are x, these are the input values, and these are the weights are the represented by theta over here. So this is the weight matrix, so this is the predicted value, that is a function of input values as well as output or as well as the weight values and actual value. This loss function can be calculated by these two values. Now if I analyze this loss function, you will see here actual output is cannot be changed because we have the actual output, so it cannot be changed. Input can also not be changed. So what is changeable over here? Only theta, only the weight matrix is changeable, only this theta is changeable. So by changing this theta value, I can minimize this loss. This will give a loss and I have to minimize this loss. So how can I minimize this loss? By just minimizing, by just updating this weight matrix. And updation of weights is known as training of neural network. So this is the training of neural network. Okay, so training of neural network means updation of the weights, so this is the simple loss function. Now what I represents here, since we train our system not by only a single input sample, I have to take a many number of input samples. So this I represents as ith input sample. It represents ith input sample. We can take 1, 2, 3, n number of input samples can be there, and I am just representing here. This is the ith input sample. That's it for ith input sample. What will be the loss function? But actually, what happens? We never calculate the loss function for single input sample, and we calculate the loss function for a batch of the input samples to minimize the gradient vanishing problem. I will explain you gradient vanishing problem just after few slides. So what I did, in place of single input sample, I just pass a batch of the input sample to this system. So now what I will do, I have a training sample. I have a training sample 1, 2, 3, which has n number of input samples. I make the batches of, for example, in this example, I am making a batches of four input samples. Four input samples I can make a batches. Now for each batch I will calculate the loss value. So now here you will see here I am just giving this particular input sample first. I have initialized the weight. It gives the output as 0.05, but actual output is 1. I can calculate the loss. Loss function, you all know, loss function is this one. So this is the loss for first input sample. Then I will apply this input sample again. I will give for the same input weights. Then I will get the this particular value. So I will get predicted value 0.02. Then I can get actual output was 0. So I will again calculate the loss function by this function. Then I will give this input value for the same weight matrix. It will give 0.96 for example, but actual is 1. I again calculate the loss. Similarly, I will give the next input sample. It gives the value 0.35, but actual is 1. So I just calculate the loss of each individual sample, and then I will sum up all these losses, and then finally I will calculate the average of these losses. So this is the average loss. This is the average loss for this input sample, for this batch of the input sample. Now this is known as the total loss. Total loss. Now this is the J theta. I can represent this total loss as J theta. Now what is my purpose? What is my objective? After getting this loss, my objective is to minimize this loss. How can I minimize this loss? How can I minimize this loss? So my objective becomes minimization of loss, and this minimization losses can only be possible by updating the weights only. So this updation of the weights is known as training of the neural network. So let's see how we are going to train the network. So now my objective is I have to minimize this average loss. So you already know how we have calculated this loss, but now I have to minimize this loss. So now let's represent this function as J theta. We can represent this function, complete function, as J theta, where theta is the weights. Theta are the weights. Okay. So now how we can minimize? So in mathematics we can easily minimize such functions. So for simplicity, we represent the weights in a surface diagram over here. And how your algorithm starts? Your algorithm starts with some random weights. So every point over here representing some weights. So let's take this is the starting point which we have started. So here I have started from this point. That's mean I will initialize my weights with these values. Initial weights will be these values. They are the random initialization. Okay, now I have to minimize. For minimization, what I do in mathematics, I can find out the derivative. This is the starting point. Then I can find out the derivative. So now this mathematics derivative just is used to find out for the minimization or maximization purpose. So here you will see here I have just calculated the derivative with respect to theta, because only theta is changeable over here. Now what happens? This is a vector and it has a direction, and it has a direction towards the maximization, but I have to minimize the loss, this loss. So what I will do, I will move in the reverse direction of this particular vector direction. So I have to move in the reverse direction like this. Now how I can minimize, go to reverse direction by just what I will do now, I have to move towards the minimization side. So I have to update the weights. Now I will calculate the new weights. So I have started from this point. I have calculated the del J theta upon del theta. Then I have to move in the reverse direction. Then I will update the weights. Now how I will update the weight? Since I have to move in the reverse direction, I will just subtract some portion of the del J theta upon del theta. Del J theta upon del theta from this actual weights. So I have updated these weights, and this eta is nothing but the learning rate. Basically, this is known as learning rate. So what I am doing, I am just updating the weights in the reverse direction. That's why I am subtracting this value from the actually starting initial point. So what will happen? I will reach to some next location because the weights are updated. So now weights are updated. After updation of the weights, what I will do? I will again this is my system. This was my system. Now I will again give the same input samples one by one, minus 20 and 45. So minus 20 will be here, 45 will be here. It will generate again the output. I updated the weights. Now I will use with the updated weights. I will use with the updated weights. Okay. So I will use the updated weights, and then I will again calculate the output, and this output is predicted output, and I have the actual output. So now I have predicted output, actual output. Now I will apply the second sample that will give you the predicted output and actual output. So I will again calculate the loss. I will again calculate the loss j theta. Then I will again find out the del j theta upon del theta. Then I will again update the weights by subtracting this del j theta upon del theta. So I will reach to some other location, and I have to repeat this step number of times, so that after number of times, hopefully I will reach to some minima. I will reach to some minima. And after repeating this whole process, let's take, we have reached to this minima. So now what I will do? Now I will fix my weights. Now I will fix my weights. This is the complete training. The training process is complete. Now let's take, after this whole process, the weights are fixed. W11, W12, and so on. And these weights, these all weights are fixed. These weights will be fixed. W1, W2, and W1. Now weight are fixed. Now what will happen? Now I will give the sample inputs, testing input, and then I will get the output, and that will be the output of my system. So this whole process is known as the training of the neural network. So this is the, I think this is clear how we are going to train the system. This is same for all the deep neural network. I can use any number of hidden layers. The process is same. Process same. I will give the input, I will calculate the output, I will calculate the loss, and I will back propagate the derivative. I will back propagate the derivative to update the weights, and this process is repeated n number of times, and after n number of times I will fix my weight, and this is the completion of the training process. Okay. So this algorithm of training is known as stochastic gradient descent. This is one of the popular algorithms, stochastic gradient descent algorithm. So let's summarize this algorithm, how this algorithm is working. So you will see here how we have started. We have started with the initialization of the weights randomly. Then for n number of epochs, number of iteration we are using n number of epochs. For here I am just showing here the algorithm for each training sample. Each training sample, I will calculate the output, then I will calculate the loss, then I will calculate the loss gradient. So this is the whole process to calculate the loss gradient. Then I will update the weight. Then I will update the weight. Then I will again repeat this particular process for n number of times. So this whole process is repeated for n number of times. So this is algorithm is very simple. This is known as stochastic gradient descent. Now you will see here, I have only used only single sample in this algorithm. But what happens when I use a single algorithm? So this, when I calculate this gradient, so this is not a true gradient. This is not a true gradient. Why it is so? Actually, what happens when the number of layers are, when you use many number of layers, then what happens? You have to back propagate this del upon del theta. You have to back propagate this. So what happens if this gradient is only for input sample, so its value is negligible in the initial stage, in the initial layers of the deep neural network. So this problem is known as the gradient vanishing problem. Gradient vanishing problem. So to overcome this gradient vanishing problem, in place of each training sample, what we do? I just pass the batch of the input samples. Okay. So this is the batch of the input samples. That is more accurate true gradient as compared to this input single sample gradient value. So this is the whole algorithm of stochastic gradient descent. So I hope you can understand this algorithm. So now we have come to know how this deep neural network learns the weights, and these weights, after the learning, these weights are known as the features, and we can say these features are automatically extracted. These features, we are not any giving any information. We are only calculating the loss. We are calculating the derivative, and we are updating the weights. That means these features are automatically updated, or you can say these features are learnable. These weights are learnable features because these are updating according to the experience. That means we are getting some, but actual data is the actual data is different. So I calculate the loss. So this is the experience, and after this I just update the feature map. And final, after fixing the weight, the feature map can be used for testing the samples. So this is the whole training algorithm. Now thing is, if we see in practice whether it is so easy, so you can see here when we see the loss function. So generally loss function may be a difficult loss function. It may be difficult to optimize. For example, this may be the loss function where there are many local optimas are there, plutos are there, so it is very tough to find out the optimum value. So may situation may occur. So for such cases, I have to either increase the number of layers, I have to increase the number of neurons, I have to increase the number of iterations, and these things we have to perform to optimize such functions. Now, second issue comes for this learning rate. How we have to choose this learning rate, because it has a great impact. Now, how this have an impact, you will see here. If I choose a very small learning rate, now what will happen? I can stuck some into some local optima. I should reach over here, but I can stuck over here. So for a small learning rate, I can stuck into a local optima. But what happens if there is a large learning rate? Then overshooting problem will be there. So I require some smarter method, some method that can find out this learning rate effectively. So there are one method is hit and trial method. You just use one and then see the output, then you choose another one and see the output. So this is an infinite combination and it is not feasible. So you require some smarter or some such type of effective method that can work effectively. So there are researchers has proposed different types of learning rate. Here we can, I am just showing you, okay, you can start, you can plan to generate your own learning rate, or such type of research can be done. So there are different types of learning rates are available. I am not going through these learning rates. You can go through by your own. I have just giving you how we can find out the gaps and we can work on that particular gap. So this is the learning rate, adaptive learning rate, or different types of learning rate you can use in your particular algorithm. So now next is, so we have seen the two problems. One is the gradient vanishing problem, and second one is the how we are choosing the learning rate. Now, third important problem is in deep neural network is the overfitting problem. Now, what is this overfitting problem basically? Now, there are two terminologies, underfitting and overfitting. So, underfitting says, okay, I have just designed a neural network and I have just trained my neural network, and I have, but this neural network, but this deep neural network is neither performing good for training data set nor for the testing data set. So, it is the underfitting problem. And overfitting problem says my system is designed in such a way, it updates the weights in such a way that it performs 100% or almost very good for the training samples, but it do not perform well for the testing samples. So this is the overfitting problem. So this is a major problem in the deep neural network because there are number of layers. There are many number of layers. So this problem is the overfitting problem. Now, how we can how we can regularize this overfitting problem? There are different regularization techniques are there. I will discuss only two. One is the dropout and early stopping that is generally used in the deep neural network. So now to overcome this problem of this overfitting problem, so first we have to understand how why this overfitting problem occurs. Actually, what happens in overfitting means I am getting very good results for input values. I am getting very good results for input value, but not getting good results for the testing values. So why it is so? Because what happens is during the training process, these neurons, hidden layer neurons, just create a dependency between the input layer. Just they just find out a relationship bond between the input values and output values. So this dependency is created between these neurons, and they are not able to just learn the new testing input samples. So how I can remove this dependency? So this dependency can be removed by this dropout process. So in dropout process, what we do during the training process, some of the neurons activation functions are set to 0. So for example, in some iterations, I set these neurons values, activation values to 0. So some of the neurons activation function are set to 0. So dependency is broken. Now after this dependency is broken, in some other iterations, what I will do, I will set other neurons activation function to 0. So this process is repeated. This process is repeated after number of iterations. Okay, so this way I can remove the dependency. This way I can remove the dependency. It helps us to overcome from the problem of overfitting problem. Important thing is this dropout function. This dropout function is only applied during the training process only. During the training process. You all know what is training process? Training process is the updation of weights only. Okay. And once the weights are fixed, I do not apply this dropout layer. I only weights are fixed, then I will just give the testing sample, it will give the output. So this dropout layer is only applied during the training process. So this is the dropout function for the regularization of the deep neural network. Now, second regularization method is the early stopping. Now, what this early stopping do actually? Now, what we do over here, I just divide my training sample into two different categories. One is the training sample, second one is the validation set. So I have divided the training set into two, training set as well as the validation test set. Excuse me. So here you will see here what happens initially. This validation set will work as a testing set. You can see here. So now initially what happens, the training as well as validation accuracy increases. Here increases, then it becomes 87 and 82, then 90 and 85. But after a particular number of iterations, what happens? Training accuracy is still increasing. It is still in an increasing phase, but validation accuracy start decaying. So what I will do, I will stop my operation before such criteria happens. So I should stop over here. So this is known as the early stopping process. So these are the two I've discussed, two regularization methods, dropout layer and early stopping method, by which I can overcome the limitation of the overfitting problem. Okay. So this is all about the deep fundamentals of deep neural network, which I have explained how we can design our deep neural network, how the training is being performed, and how how we are coming from the overfitting problem. So now I just discussed one of the application area of deep neural network, and that application area is the computer vision field. So computer vision field, you all know computer vision uh, field. Here in computer vision, what we do, we try to visualize the world, or we try to visualize the images and videos. Computer vision means I just like our eyes are capable to capture the environment as in terms of images, then my brain analyze those images, then I reflect, I perform some operation. So this is the computer vision due to this computer vision techniques. So this is the human vision, sorry, human vision techniques. So in my brains I have the neurons, they are connected parallelly and they are connected sequentially as well. They take the image, they perform some operation, and then they give the signals to our machinery to perform the action. So this is the human vision. Similarly, we try to give the eyes vision to the machine, where machine will be capable to capture the images, they can process the image and they can perform the operation. So this is the computer vision thing. And now I am going to explain how this deep neural network can be used to perform the computer vision task. Now before going to this computer vision task, let's try to understand how traditional machine learning system uh, perform the vision task for the images. So now for traditional machine learning system, how they do? First, they take the training input samples. So we have a set of input samples. I have some problem. For that problem, I should have a training sample. Now from these training samples, I have to train my classifier. I have to train my classifier. Now for the training, I need two things. In first is the input sample values. Second is the training labels. So every input is labeled with some output. That's mean the classes. If there are four classes, that's mean every image belongs to either one of the class, and so on. So I should have the training label. I should have the input set of images. Now I have to train my classifier. So now in traditional machine learning system, I have to tell the machine which features you have to extract. That's mean On the basis of these features, these classifier train itself. That means I have to give the machine which features you have to extract. You have to extract the lines, you have to extract the, you can say, the area, you have to extract the key points or corners, you have to extract the texture. That's why you have to tell the machine that you have to extract these features. You have to extract these features from this image. From this image, the hue value means color of the pixel values. So these are the handcrafted features because we are giving this information to classifier. That's why this is the handcrafted features. Handcrafted features. So these are the handcrafted features, and on the basis of these handcrafted features, classifier trained itself, and then we got the trained classifier that is used for the testing purpose. Now what happens? For this, for the good accuracy of the classifier, for the better precision of the classifier, its precision and accuracy is highly dependent on these features. Highly dependent on these features. If these features contains relevant features, important features, then my accuracy will be high. But if these features are not relevant, if these features are irrelevant and no redundant features are there, not important features are there, then in that case the features are very limited. So in that case the accuracy will suffer, the precision will suffer. So that means the accuracy and precision of a system is highly dependent on the image features. So what should I do? So I use a deep learning technique. So in deep learning techniques, this phase is removed. This phase is removed. That means I do not need to find out the handcrafted features. I do not need to tell the machine which features you have to calculate. So this process is replaced by the automated process. The classifier automatically extract the features, and I have to only supply the whole image as an input. Whole image means it's pixel information, pixel intensity information. So I have to supply the pixel intensity information to the image, and then it will classify the, it will train itself, it will extract the features and then train itself, and then train just like I have just explained you. You know, features, we all know how we automatically extract the features. So this is the beauty of the deep neural network. Now, before understanding the image classification problem using deep neural network, first let us try to understand what is image is. So you can see here images for us. This image is of a cat image, and there are different objects are also there. But for a machine, this particular image is made up of pixels, Okay, and each pixel has a value. Each pixel has a numeric value. So for a computer, this image is not more than a numbers only, a set of numbers only. So you can see here this small portion is a set of numbers. Now how these numbers are decided? If image is black and white image, then each pixel value will be either 0 or 1, 0 or 1. If it is a grayscale image means the image have a shades of white, and in between white and black, then it will have each pixel will have a value in between 0 to 255, 0 to 255. So it is a grayscale image. Okay, and finally we have a color image. So in color image, what happens? There are more than one channels. For example, in case of RGB model, red, green, blue model, there are 3 channels, and each channel is ranged from 0 to 255, 0 to 255, and 0 to 255. The 3 channels are there. 3 channels are there. So here for an input image, for a computer, these are not more than the numbers. We have to play with these numbers only, and after playing with these numbers, I have to design a system that should classify this image into a number of categories. Let's take, I have to classify this image into one of the categories, and which categories? Cat, dog, hat, and mug. So now I will perform some image classification problem, and after the training process, my system should give the result is given in terms of generally probability. So my system should give the highest probability to this cat class. Only then I can say my system is working fine. So here 82%, if I say 82%, it is classified as a cat. So definitely my system is working very good. The error rate is very less. So this is the image classification problem and how we are going to perform this operation, how we are going to play with these numbers. So it's as you see, we have to play with the numbers, but it is not easy to play with the numbers because there are many variations available in the images. We have to deal with these variations and how we can tackle out these variations in our system. So there are viewpoint variations in the images. So you can say how difficult for our human brain, for our human eyes, it is easy. We can easily recognize these objects, but for computer being, we different features are being extracted. So definitely viewpoint variations are there. So our traditional classifiers are not able to classify such type of variations. Illumination variations, different lighting conditions are known as illumination variations. Same object but different lighting conditions gives you the different impact of the image. Scaling variation may be there in the image. Scaling variation may be there. Okay, and you can say deformation, occlusion, intra-class variation. Intra-class variation means same class object but their structure shape are different. Intra-class variations. So you can see there are lots of variations are there, and traditional machine learning systems face these, are not able to classify such type of variations. But now deep neural network are able to come out from these limitations, and they are able to able to tackle with these variations. Except there is still one of the challenging problem, that is the occlusion. If we have some or obstacle in front of some object which we have to identify, so it becomes a problem. So still the problem is open, it is an open research problem and we are still working on this. So these are the different variations and which makes the computer vision task a difficult process. Now we are going to design a computer vision problem, and for this computer vision, the first step is we need to train our system. And for training my system, I need a large training data set. I need a large training data set. So now at present scenario, there is no problem for the large training data set. We have publicly available image data set that can be used to train my system. For example, you can see here I have MNIST data set. It is a handwritten numerals, a handwritten digits, and where I can extract the data and I can perform. I can take these images for my training process and can be used for my application. There are ImageNet. ImageNet is an archive or large archive of the different types of images that can be used. CIFAR. This is the tiny images and different types of image data sets are available that can be used to train my deep neural network. Okay, so now so now here I have just explained what is the image processing techniques and how it is different. So how it is difficult to process. Now let's try to make the deep neural network for the image classification problem. Now what is the image classification problem over here? So if I just explain the very basic image classification problem, let's take, we have handwritten numerals, we have some handwritten numerals. Okay, so each handwritten numerals is an image of a particular size. So let's take the size of each image is 28 by 28. That's mean total number of pixels in an image is 784 pixels are there. 28 rows, 28 columns, so total number of pixels are 784. So these are the handwritten numerals. Now I have to design a system so that if I give a image as an input to that system, so it should identify it, it should classify it into a particular class. So its class should be 5, its class should be 0, its class should be 4, its class should be 1, its class should be 9, its class should be 2. So I have to design such a system so that if I give this image as an input, it should classify it into a particular class. Okay, so how many classes are there for this input or for this particular problem? There will be 10 classes. 0, because they are 0, 1, 2, 10 numerals are there, 3 and so on up to 9. So 10 classes are there. Now I have to design a deep neural network for this system. So how I can design? So in this design in deep neural network, what we do, we just give the whole input, whole image as an input. Now what is image? Image is nothing but a pixel value. So here the number of pixels are 784. So what I will do, I will use one neuron in the input layer. This is the input layer. I will use one neuron for one pixel value, one neuron for one pixel value. So how many neurons are required? I require 784 neurons in input layer. So there are 784 neurons over here. There are 784 neurons in the input layer. and each input layer, each neuron will take the input from the pixel value. So here the image is of grayscale image. Grayscale image means that each pixel value will have either in between 0 to 255. So its value will be given to first neuron, first pixel value given to first neuron, second pixel value will be given to second neuron, third will be given to third neuron, and so on. So this is the input layer neurons. Now we have decided how many neurons are recorded in input layer. It is equals to the number of pixels. Number of pixels are here, over here is 784. I can design this. Now next is the how many neurons will be there in the output layer. So in output layer neurons, it is equals to the number of classes. How many classes are there? 10. So how many neurons will be there? There will be 10 neurons. There will be 10 neurons. Okay. So we have decided the two things. Now one thing is I have to decide the number of hidden layers and number of hidden layers and each number of neurons in each hidden layer. Let's take here. I am just showing over here only single hidden layer. You can use any number of hidden layers. So single hidden layer is there with 15 neurons. This is a hyperparameter. These are 15 neurons. Now I have connected all the input, all this input layer neurons to hidden layer neurons to output layer neurons. So such architecture where every input, every neuron in the previous layer is connected to every neuron in the next layer neurons is known as the dense dense layer. We can say it is a dense layer. So this is a dense layer. This is a dense layer. Input is connected to hidden layer. All the inputs are connected to all the hidden layer neurons. All these hidden layer neurons are connected to output layer neurons. These are the dense layers. Okay, these are dense layers. So these are dense. Now how we are going to perform, this is the architecture. It is very simple to design the architecture. Now I have to perform the operation. How I will perform the operation, you all know. I will randomly initialize the weights. Then I will give the supply the input pixel values, input image one by one. I will get the output. I know the actual output. I will calculate the loss. I will find out the derivative. Then I will update the weights, and this process is repeated n number of times. After n number of times, I will fix these weights, and then I will give any input. It will give me some output. It will activate some of the one of the class of this output layer neuron. So this is the whole process of the classification of the image. Now you see how it is simple, but if we analyze this architecture, you will see here there's major problem. What is the major problem? Here I am using a very small image, 28 by 20 images there, 28 by 20 images there, and generally the image size is of very large. For example, 1024 by 1024 or more larger images are there. In that case, how many neurons you will require in the input layer? How many connections will be there? How many weights I have to update? I have only used a single hidden layer. If I increase the number of hidden layers, so you can see the complexity of such system increases drastically, increases exponentially, and it is very difficult to tackle with the high performance devices as well. And this is the problem. We are not able to work in a deep neural network in a such architecture. We require some different architecture to perform the image classification problem. The reason, I think it is clear to all of you. What happens if I use such architecture, dense layer? If I use the dense layer, then in such cases, that means every input is connected to every neuron in the next input layer. Every neuron in this layer is connected to every neuron in the next layer, and so on and so on. And if the size of the image is very large, then it increases the complexity, because the matrix size, the number of parameters which we are going to train, we are going to train the weights. So these number of parameters increases drastically, increases exponentially. So it is not easy to tackle with the high performance devices as well, because we have to perform lots of multiplications and multiplication, addition, and lots of activation function we have to apply. So this is the problem why we are not using such architecture. So to overcome this problem, what happens? A deep neural network, a new architecture is designed for the image classification problem. Only the operation is, we mathematically we perform the same operation, but the architecture is little bit different. The approach is little bit different, and we just propose a little bit different. In place of dense layer, we use a sparse layer. That means the number of connection is, we reduce the number of connection at a time. So it will reduce the complexity. This will reduce the complexity. So such architecture is given a name. such architecture is given a name, and that name is known as the convolutional neural network. This name is given as a convolutional neural network. So what we do, we are shifting. This is a deep neural network. Architecture is same, but the major issue is the complexity is very high. So to overcome this problem, we have designed a deep neural network in such a way the architecture is little bit different, that mathematically it performs the same operation like this, but approach is, in place of dense layer we are approaching for sparse layer operation, and such neural network is known as the convolutional neural network. We have given this deep neural network, this is also deep neural network, we are given a name convolutional neural network, because here in this architecture we will use a operation, mathematical operation, that is known as convolution, and on that basis of convolution we give it a name as CNN. So I have just explained you this model for the image classification problem, and from the next class, in the evening class, I will start explaining how I am converting this dense network to a sparse network by using a convolution neural network, and how we perform the image classification. Now session is open for the problems. You can ask me the problems. Please raise the problems. So let me see.
Participants, if you have any query, please ask in the chat box. Participants, if you have any query, please write in the chat box.
Yes, please raise the queries. It will be better for you as well and for me as well. So I think there is no query.
Sir, one query from participant Mahima Jain.
Mahima Jain.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So can we save models for machine learning algorithms? Yes, we can save the models for machine learning algorithms, and that models can, after the training, we can save my models, and that model after the training I can use that model in my mobile devices, in my chips, in my IoT devices, anywhere. That means the complexity is only during the training process. Complexity is only during the training process. Once you train the model, that can be used in any small devices, which is programmable. You can easily use those algorithm in your particular devices. So there is no issue for that. We'll go through the training practical approaches also. I will just explain you how we can use TensorFlow to design. We will design some of the neural networks using the TensorFlow and with the Keras API. Any other query, please?
I think no any query.
Okay, that's good. So we can now stop the presentation, and there's one more query. How it will select features, sir, if we remove that? Uh, what we remove that? Please clear. How it will select the features if we remove that? What you are going to remove? Please complete your question. Next question was, till then I just take the next question. Can variation in training data affect the performance? Definitely. That's why we require a large of training data set. More variation in the training data set, more better training will be there. More better training will be there. Okay. And the system will be able to identify the variations. I have just shown you the variation slide. You will see here there are lots of variations there. Deformation variations are there, scaling variations are there. If I will not have such type of data in my training data set, then how it will learn? So that's why variation in the training data set is very important. Okay. So that step means, okay, if you are talking about the dropout layer, and dropout layer, what happens for a single iteration? When only for single iteration we set the activation to 0, and only activation is 0. That's mean those particular the weights, those particular weights, the input are not affected. So actually this dependency is being broken down, and we can betterly perform. We can just overcome the problem of the overfitting problem. So only for one iteration, then in some other iteration, then the activation function is activated for the previous neurons, and deactivate the some other neurons, and with a very small probability. We perform this operation with very small probability. Yes. More questions, please. Okay, sir. So let us bind up, and we'll meet in the evening.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much,
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
participants, and we will meet again at 10:30 for the next session. Thank you, all of you.